welcome to another day in the Matrix, and what a past couple weeks it's been for this market. We've been coiling up more and more, and everyone wants to know what to expect next for crypto. So we're going to jump straight into these charts while decoding this pivotal time frame of the Chinese Lunar New Year, kicking off the year of the snake, and review the setup for this upcoming monthly close as we transition into February. So if you're new here at Waters Above, we're empowering you to unlock your infinite potential with esoteric investing by combining Gematria, Numerology, and Astrology with technical analysis to understand these markets and become a more profitable investor. Now let's take the clear pill. So the FOMC has come and gone, and the Fed has decided to not cut rates, making this the first meeting without a rate cut since July. And when we look back at the Dow, S&P, NASDAQ, and even Bitcoin and XRP, what they all have in common is they're trading close to their micro resistance and are all primed for continuation into price discovery. Now, I know many here are focused solely on the altcoins, and trust me, as my portfolio is now 75% altcoins, I'm definitely focused on them too. But it's important to keep an eye on the traditional markets, and of course the main reason you come here to this channel is for an esoteric perspective on the market. So since today is the Chinese Lunar New Year, the year of the snake, and specifically the year of the wood snake, we have to look back at the last year of the wood snake, which was in 1965. So I want to go over to the S&P chart back to 1965 and see if we find any patterns. But before we focus specifically on that year of 1965, let's look back at the years of 1963 and 1964. And you'll see how during that time, the stock market was also trading into price discovery, just like it was during 2023 and last year, 2024. Effectively just all-time high after all-time high with nice healthy corrections along the way. And for those that have been following along my channel for some time, you know I used my Year of the Dragon decode that I released at the beginning of 2024 during the entire year last year, and we noticed early on that it was perfectly mimicking 1964, the year of the Wood Dragon, as 2024 was also the year of the Wood Dragon, which we've just concluded. And I used that decode to determine an event similar to the Notre Dame fire that happened in Paris on the exact day that it happened, which turned out to be the fire at the old Copenhagen Stock Exchange last year. And that was very symbolic because we have the old world going away. We're moving into the Aquarian age, where we won't have the stock market as it once was. The stock market will effectively be tokenized very soon, and it will probably be running 24/7, just like the crypto market, but it'll run on the blockchain. That is what we're moving into. And that burning of the old Copenhagen Stock Exchange at the same exact time frame that we got for that Notre Dame fire event, and the fact that we pointed it out to be at that time frame, was definitely telling me that we were onto something that year. And I even pointed out the similarity to the March timeframe for 2024 and the year 2000, which was the year and month that the dot-com bubble started to pop. And we watched Bitcoin top into mid-March of 2024, and it actually then continued sideways for about 8 months. And during that decode, I mentioned to expect 100K Bitcoin within the year of 2024, and that it would make sense for this milestone to be accomplished after the final solar eclipse of our solar cycle, which was in October of 2024. Then a month later, we had Bitcoin break out and then officially hit 100K before the end of 2024. So all of that was covered in that Year of the Dragon decode that I released last year, and also in my follow-up presentation to finish off the year, which was called Black Moon Decoded for December 2024. And this was released about a week before the US election, and during that election I showed how Kamala Harris had very unfavorable code. Now I'm telling you all of this for a reason, because it's the setup to how I see the next couple months going for us this time around here at the start of 2025, the year of the snake. Now coming back to the unfavorable code for Kamala Harris was she was born in the San Francisco Bay Area, and she was born in the year 1964. That was literally the last year of the Wood Dragon that I was just telling you how the stock market was mimicking also this last year 2024 to 1964. She was born that year. And of course, 2024 is the year she's running for president in her year, the year of the Wood Dragon. And who lost the Super Bowl that year? The San Francisco 49ers, the team associated with where she was born, the San Francisco Bay Area, and it had a losing code. Just like the 49ers also lost 2020 Super Bowl against the same team, the Kansas City Chiefs. And this was also the election year that Biden won, and it made her the 49th vice president of the United States. She had the 49 code all over her, and this was the losing team tied to the 49ers. And of course, here we are now. She lost the staged selection, and now Trump is in the Oval Office. All of this was inspired by that year of the Dragon Decoded, and when I saw the stock market was mimicking the same exact way in 1964, it really gave me confidence that 1965 and 2025 will have a lot in common. So I have all the videos throughout 2025 you could go back and watch, and we pointed out these things as we progressed. We're going to do the same thing this year, and I believe we'll have a very similar level of accuracy. Now, looking back at 1965, the last year of the wood snake, you'll see a few months prior here in November of 1964. During the election season, the market actually moved up and was stable past the US election, and then it even moved up a little bit higher after that into the end of November. So just because we had this movement over here, I want you to realize that typically we actually tend to move down into election day, and we slide even further into the end of November. It's typically the week leading into the election we're going down, and then even up to 2 weeks after. But in 1964, we didn't get our correction until after the election, from late November down to mid-December. And this is really incredible because that's actually the way that it went here in 2024. We didn't get our correction until after the election, and we pushed up higher immediately after the election as well. Now, when we look back at this market that we're dealing with today, I just want to show you the play-by-play. We had the US election on November 5th. You see this gap was formed. We pushed up pretty high, went even a little bit deeper actually into early December before then correcting a lot into January. But this whole play right here was quickly bought back up. And you can see that we're effectively right back at prior peak highs, just like we were over here at the end of the Chinese Year of the Dragon. This green box would be Chinese Lunar New Year, what we are experiencing today. You see how that was the prior peak right after the election, and here we are, we're back retesting it in that final week of the Chinese year. It's amazing how we are mimicking this so closely. So a couple days ago, the market filled its diapers with the whole DeepSeek psyop, but now you can see that just one day after, we're pushing right back up. We're stabilizing as well after the very recent FOMC meeting that just passed a couple hours ago. So with all this drama going on, we're still mimicking 1965, and we already mimicked perfectly 1964. Now the question is, do we copy this move right here of February 1965, which corrected perfectly into the February full moon? Again, we're using the lunar cycle here and following that along with eclipses to determine pivot points during the months and also big pivot points throughout the year. So we can see that we topped on the new moon at the start of Chinese New Year, and then we had this correction into the full moon. And if you're going to follow along this, I just want you to know that there will be differences this time around because we do have our eclipses during different points this year. So please take note of that. Even though I'm showing you this far in advance, it doesn't mean you just look back in 1965 and you copy paste and expect it to all go perfectly according to plan. There will be nuances, but it's the general energy we're looking to follow here, because when people start throwing out the year 2001 or the year 2008 with the subprime mortgage crisis or even the C-19 crash, they fail to realize that there's an esoteric side to those three examples I just explained. One of which is they were during the year of the Shemitah, which is a 7-year cycle, and we're not dealing with that anymore. We dealt with that back in 2021. And if you look at the top of 2021 into the bottom of 2022, it was perfectly in alignment with Rosh Hashanah, the Hebrew New Year. So we're also throwing in the Hebrew calendar here in this channel as an additional element to get more accuracy with the calls. So with all of that out of the way, I just wanted to share that quick disclaimer so nobody thinks it's going to be perfectly month to month exactly as it was in 1965. There will be nuances, and that's what we're going to get into right now. But one thing I want to point out is that we did just experience a pretty noticeable correction in January. It was right here. And I think that what we got in February 1965, we actually just experienced into January, full moon. Or could that noticeable correction be coming up soon, but it'll just be a higher low. So nothing breaking structure. As you can see, we've been just planting higher lows over and over and higher highs. So we're following the structure. We're still in a bull trend. And as they say, trend is your friend until it ends. And we're looking pretty good, even though there's definitely noticeable bearish divergences forming on higher time frames. You know, the technical people that are watching this would want me to point some of that stuff out, but you're going to get that on all the other channels anyway. And I know of it, but I'm trying to share something unique and different here. It's art, not content. So I get how this market operates exoterically. I'm here to provide you with something unique, and that's distinguished from the rest, right? So we're going to stick on focusing on the esoteric elements. And the most important one to point out was this major correction that happened from May into June of 1965. It had everything to do with the eclipse that was right here. As you can see, total solar eclipse. The eclipses are different this year, though, in 2025, as I mentioned earlier. Now, what runs this market is astrology, numerology, and Gematria, and I'm going to follow the moon, not the news. In 1965, that dramatic correction happened immediately after the lunar eclipse, or that total eclipse, or I could just call it the first eclipse of that year. We peaked about 3 weeks before, as you can see on that new moon, and then we had the correction about 4 weeks after, as above, so below. It was a bull trap, which led to a bear trap, obviously, because we then pivoted and went much higher, and that correction that we got, that mid-cycle correction, was an amazing buying opportunity. And I feel like that might be the case this time around as well. So, when is our first eclipse of this year? Well, that'll be in March. And it will be the total lunar eclipse that starts our lunar cycle on March 14th. I've been talking about it in every single video here for the past 6 months. So this is why I believe we'll also have a dramatic correction around this upcoming eclipse season in March, likely to happen after the eclipse. And it could be a very elusive move because, of course, we're focused on crypto here, and this asset is much more volatile compared to the traditional markets. And we're just using these patterns back from 1965 because crypto didn't exist back then, as you're well aware. And the best charts we have available are pretty much just Bitcoin starting in 2012, 2011 with very limited data. So we only have one example of the year of the snake for Bitcoin, and it was 2013. And I'll get to that in a moment. But once you start realizing the patterns here, they're undeniable, like we did with the year of the dragon. When we look back in 1965, we can see that the market topped on the new moon before eclipse season. Well, when we look at the new moon before eclipse season this time around, it'll be the February new moon, late February 28th. So keep that date in mind. Now I want to go over to the Bitcoin chart now and point out a pattern we've identified for the month of March. And it will make even more sense of how this is likely to turn out specifically for the crypto market now that I've prepared you with all that foundational analysis. So we're going over to the Bitcoin chart. We want to get back to March of last year. I'm going to turn off all this noise, make it just only candles. And you can see March 13th. Bitcoin literally topped on that exact day, which, funny enough, that'll be the total lunar eclipse day this year. So Bitcoin tops on this day, and then we did pop up a little bit higher into the April new moon. That was also a total solar eclipse, excuse me. It was a very popular eclipse, the Great American Eclipse. We had a lower high though, but we were bullish technically. The top though was March, and that then went on for an 8-month consolidation period. We had about a 17% correction from the new moon to the full moon, popped back up, got a little higher in April, but not too high, and then it was short-lived because then the continuation of the downtrend went throughout Q2 and Q3. So keep the March and April months in mind, but specifically, I want you to focus on the dates of March 10th through 15th. Now let's go to the prior year, and you'll see this kind of V-shaped recovery moment that we had right there. We were moving up into the February new moon, which I just told you about a little bit ago, February 28th. And then we had this pretty noticeable correction. If you look at the date that it happened on, it was March 10th. That was the full moon back then. And this was the retail banking black swan with Silvergate and Silicon Valley Bank collapse. Again, another point to California having negative symbolism. We talked about the San Francisco 49ers losing both of the last Super Bowls that they were in. One of them was tied to one of the most important years of all of our life, the start of the C-19 scam. And that was all triggered by March 11th of 2020. Another March, the middle of March date. This is no joke, guys, so I really want you to keep this in mind, because all of these big events that have been happening on our world stage, these black swans, pretty much happening in March. Then we have a couple months back. It will be 2021 when we had our top for the Bitcoin market of 2021. You look at the date, it was March 13th. Just like last year, it was literally on March 13th when we topped. So the pattern is undeniable, right? And you can see that the March full moon, Bitcoin really just couldn't push much higher after that. Already by late February, after the February new moon, we were topped out. And yes, technically Bitcoin did make a new higher high into April, but wasn't much higher. And also in 2023, Bitcoin did push higher into April, but both iterations were short-lived. And they both followed by a dramatic pullback after. Now let's skip over to the cycle before this one in 2017. It's a very important moment to point out because there could be a repeat of this coming soon. We have right here this crazy day in the market for Bitcoin, March 10th. Liquidation ritual in both directions, as you can see. This also followed with around a 33% pullback. And when you look at the time frame of March 10th through 15th, which is what I told you to keep in mind, you'll see that right after that date, by March 16th, we started a 9-day downtrend that was about 30% loss for Bitcoin. Final example, we'll look at 2013, the first major Bitcoin bull run. And in this cycle, we do see a crazy move for Bitcoin up until April of 2013. Apologies for this taking some time to load, but it's right there. We had a blow off top. So all of March was pretty decent. We got our March 12th flash correction right there on the new moon. And then we pushed up into April new moon on the nose. You can see the blue dot up there, symbolic of the new moon. April is very important here in this pattern as well because we perfectly topped there and then we had a serious correction. This was an 80% correction for Bitcoin almost instantaneously. I mean, this was in 6 days, 81%. And then we traded sideways for 200 days before breaking higher. This also happened last year with our March and April top leading into a 200-day consolidation. And coincidentally, in our last cycle of 2021, when Bitcoin topped in March and April, it took 200 days to recover back to where it ended up being the double top. So you're seeing the pattern, right? Don't mess around with the March-April move. And if we can protect ourselves in March, we could prevent ourselves from having to deal with the blood in the streets all throughout the 200 days potentially that we could be trading sideways, or potentially even ending the bull run. And I don't necessarily think that's the case, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. But now that we brought up all these Bitcoin examples, let's go over to the XRP chart and see if we're getting anything over there, because I believe we are. We do have a little bit of a pattern showing up for XRP, and it's right here on this major surge to the upside that we've been tracking for a while now on my channel. Right here, when we look back at the all-time high for XRP, which by the way was the year of the snake, just like we're in now, we see this move up into April 2017, huge surge, and then we did initiate a pretty dramatic pullback. But with this additional move up into May, we do have about a 70% correction here, and then 200 days of sideways. So I'm not making this up, guys. I'm showing you now on multiple assets here, and this was separated by quite a bit of time between the Bitcoin and XRP move, and you all know the reason why. It has to do with just liquidity flowing over into the altcoins. So this pattern is in the XRP chart as well. Of course, with alts, it would push a month later. And in our last cycle of 2021, we saw the true alt season effectively ended in April. We also have the Bitcoin play topping out in April as well, right here on this peak. And why is that so important is because this was during the start of the SEC versus Ripple lawsuit. Huge correction, and yet XRP during the very early stage of that lawsuit was able to move up 1,000%. That's huge. That tells you it had everything to do with Bitcoin entering price discovery and the overall alt market getting the flood of liquidity from Bitcoin topping out. It had nothing to do with the SEC case. Why do we know that? Because every big win that happened throughout 2023 into 2024, even the July 13th event of 2023, where Annalisa Torres deemed XRP no longer a security, why were we only able to get up to 93 cents? But yet all the way back here when there was no clarity, when there was no idea of what was going to happen next for XRP, we had a 10x. So it's just showing you that you got to follow the money. You know, don't follow this exoteric news. It's going to trap you and keep you emotional. And that's the worst when it comes to investing. So this system that we're exploring right here, it's to take the emotions out of it and to just see clearly. And I believe there's a lot of clarity provided here with how things can go for this upcoming March and April. And not every coin recovered alongside Bitcoin and Ethereum into Q4 of 2021. Clearly, XRP didn't. Pretty much the only outlier of the high market cap projects was Solana. It continued into price discovery during the whole Q3 and Q4 timeframe. Now, we check back into Bitcoin seasonality. We could also see that April is the second best performing month behind November. But keep in mind that even though Bitcoin topped back in April 2021, the month still ended off in the red. And last year, April 2024, was also in the red. So it doesn't mean you're guaranteed a green month here. This could very well be the month where we top and then during the same month have a major correction. And in the 2013 iteration, after topping in April, Bitcoin immediately experienced an 80% correction. It was a blow off top. So just keep that in mind as well, because even if we can move a little higher into April, it doesn't mean that we're just going to keep going and going and going. And there's a caveat here, and I'll get to that in a moment. And as I film this today into the final hours of the month of January, when we look at the monthly chart for Bitcoin, we should be right around 11%. If you look at right here while I'm hovering my cursor, you'll see 10.85. Now, the average monthly returns for Bitcoin is 11%, so we're right on target. And we're also usually up about 15% in February. So for Q1, February is our best performing month, technically. And I'm also anticipating Bitcoin and the altcoins to have a really solid month ahead. And then it's March and April that are the wild card, where we'll probably see extremes in the data. And I believe after watching this video today, you're much more prepared for what's to come. So enjoy the ride and don't get distracted by all the FUD and the drama we'll be hit with between now and then. Oh, and also the next FOMC meeting is March 18th through 19th. It's so perfectly timed how it's right after our start of the lunar cycle. And now for the Bitcoin play, keep an eye on this 106K level. I think that's very, very important right now. When we're looking at this chart, we can see that it's become a short-term resistance right here from the initial top we had back in December, and this sharp move immediately after the inauguration of Donald Trump and the following day, showing resistance as we did between the 16th through 18th of December. It's not necessarily a double top just yet. It's a retest. And because it was tied to this exoteric event of Donald Trump's meme coin and all eyes on crypto, and then we had this NVIDIA thing come a couple days ago and DeepSeek, and just it's so much eyes on the market right now and on the tech sector and on AI and on blockchain. So the Trump meme coin thing was very well executed regarding trapping in new retail who have no idea how this market works. And it effectively ended up being a rug pull, you know? And this, again, it is what it is. It's the retail investors are being culled right now by the New World Order to get them savvy with blockchain and crypto because we're moving into that system. I know some people are hopeful for what the system could be in a positive, but I don't think that's necessarily how it's going to go. I did share in my Year of the Dragon Decode last year how all Elon is here to do is to create the new Alipay. It will just be the same thing with X payments. We are moving into the age of Aquarius, guys, and this vibe will not be about your identity anymore or be about sovereignty. It will be all about social credit. It'll be all about the numbers, and ideas like the ones we used to hold on to with identity, they will no longer work. And I'm not saddened by that. I'm not worried about that at all. I'm just speaking my truth right now. And I think it's an opportunity for enlightened individuals, as it was back in 2020 and 2021 during the C19 scam. You know, there was pressure put on us for being aware, but ultimately, look at how things have transpired and look at the death spiral that all the people who believed in that scam are going through now. So it's just optics. It's just confusion. It's look here, don't look there, the Hegelian, etc. Focus. That's all I can say. So keep this 106 level for Bitcoin in mind. It's a current resistance, and I believe if we can break above 106K on a weekly close, I'd anticipate our next leg up into price discovery to follow immediately after. And I'm anticipating at least 120 to 130K Bitcoin before any major corrections. So take note of that. And this move up for Bitcoin would trigger the next leg up for XRP to the $5 level for the first time, with a technical target of $6.40 to $8.60, right around that $7 zone. And I have targets much higher than that, but one step at a time. And also I have coming soon a dedicated XRP Red Pill podcast, which is really going to be important for the XRP holders and the people that are also invested in HBAR, XLM, XDC, etc. Also, the good news is if Bitcoin does push up into this high and then has that noticeable correction of around 25 to 30% after, as I said, imagine we made it up to 130. We were to have a full 30% correction back to our current support range. I do believe we will have another move even higher into the month of August, trading into early September before our final eclipse season of this year of 2025. That's the good news. I'm calling this my double peak cycle theory, which is what happened to Bitcoin back in 2013, which was also the year of the snake, just like we've moved into today. So if you want to fully prepare for this year of 2025, I have officially released my new full-length presentation for the Year of the Snake Decoded, available now at patreon.com/watersabove for our Mastermind community membership. And along with unlocking this new presentation which is almost an hour and a half long, packed with gems from start to finish, you'll also get access to my weekly Red Pill podcast, which I just released a new What I'm Investing special recently that covers my entire portfolio of over 20 different altcoins, and I share my investment thesis for this bull run. I also, as I just said a moment ago, will be coming out with the new XRP special, focusing a lot on what XRP's price discovery will be like, and that is available over on Patreon as well, part of our mastermind community, as well as you'll receive live updates whenever I'm buying or selling my investments. So that's another huge perk included with our membership. So if you want to join our community of like-minded conscious investors, you can find the link to the Patreon in the description box below or in the pinned comment below. And I'm looking forward to hear your feedback on this new Year of the Snake Decoded. I've already received an overwhelmingly positive response, with many saying it's my best work yet. So that truly means the world to me, and I'm infinitely grateful for all your continued support. Wishing you all an amazing rest of your day in the Matrix. Much love.